So I guess JJ Watt just suddenly decided to announce to the world that he's going to retire. Uh, Posted on Twitter today a picture and said that it was, I believe that's his son, right? That was their first NFL game, and it was his last home game in the NFL. So JJ Watt, I believe it was 13 years that he played in the NFL. Uh, Unfortunately, a lot of injuries kind of plagued his career. He still is pretty great and will probably be first ballot Hall of Famer, but JJ Watt riding off into the sunset this offseason.
I think it was kind of a weird way to announce it. Like, there's only 2 games left, and he's like, okay, I'll just announce it now. You would have thought maybe like before or after the season. It's a little weird to me.
Personally, I think there's only one way to um, announce your retirement, and that was the way Andrew Luck did it right before the season began, during the preseason, when the whole team was ready for you to bring him to the Super Bowl, and then you just bounce and say, "Yo, I'm done."
What a way to
Yeah,
go out.
I'm still disappointed about the way that Peyton Manning retired. So I remember watching Super Bowl 50, and after the game is over, everybody's happy, and a reporter comes up to him and asks him if it was his last game. And he said, "Well, I want to make sure that I think about it first and evaluate all the options." It would have been just so perfect if he would have said, "Yes, that was my last game," almost like a mic drop. But I don't know. Everybody does it their own way, I guess.
I kind of agree with you. I mean, I feel like everyone knew that he was going to retire, and what a better way to retire than from a Super Bowl win. I mean,
Yeah,
he was playing dog crap that season. He got benched for Osweiler a couple of weeks.
yeah, that was one of the worst quarterback seasons that actually resulted in a Super Bowl win, in my opinion.
Right, the defense took him a long ways,
Yeah.
and whatever was left of the offense. Oh my gosh.
So Riley, I think you got a topic for us. You want to go ahead and share it?
Yeah.
So, how sustainable is the mobile quarterback? I guess not even mobile, but just a straight, running quarterback. So here is a list of quarterbacks this year. It looks like there's 5 on this list that they've gotten hurt at least pretty badly, where they've had to miss extended periods of time this year. So first of all, we got Kyler Murray with the torn ACL. Trey Lance then broke his ankle early on in the season. Justin Fields, shoulder joint injury. Lamar Jackson, knee sprain, which quite honestly, Lamar Jackson actually missed quite a few games last year too. I believe, didn't he play in 12 last year? It was something like that.
Yeah,
And then Jalen Hurts with the sprained shoulder, which, not to dust myself off here, but I actually said a few weeks ago that wasn't sustainable. So you got these quarterbacks that, they're great playmakers, great athletes. They can throw the ball for the most part, and they can also run it. But then, they get injured so quickly and so easily. It's like, when are we gonna see, just kind of a combination? So like Josh Allen, I guess some people call him a running quarterback, but he at least knows when to go down sometimes, or when to fight for the extra yards. And he also, doesn't make it like the main point of his game, versus I feel like if you took the run game away from a lot of these guys, they wouldn't be nearly as successful as just a passing quarterback.
I don't know about that though, because Josh Allen kind of does some stupid plays when he shouldn't. Like when he turns over the ball, he goes for the tackle, like pretty much every time, and it's not what he should be doing. He
and
goes like
that's
he takes pretty big hits from it.
right, and that's mostly it. I mean, coming from or playing that position in high school, I I uh I look at that as like a moment of frustration relief. Like, oh, I just turned the ball over. If I can get a big hit on this guy, might relieve a little bit of my pain from turning over the ball.
I feel
Yeah,
like the
but
thing about Josh Allen is at least he's big versus a lot of these guys aren't, like Kyler
True.
Murray and Lamar Jackson, for example.
Hmm. Yeah, when you're when you're Kyler Murray, you turn over the ball, there's can't really do much. Kind of just gotta live with it and suck it up, you know.
Yeah.
so to counter that list, pocket quarterbacks or non-mobile quarterbacks, Mike White, rib injury. Jimmy G broke his foot. Matthew Stafford's got a lot of issues going on, but mostly his neck. Kenny Pickett's had a concussion, and then Ryan Tannehill with his ankle.
Don't forget Tua.
Well, Tua's kind of in between. He's kind of like mobile and
Depends on the week, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, in all honesty, so I think this year's kind of been the year of the backup quarterback. So like I think we're seeing quarterbacks go down at probably a historically high rate. I mean, it sure feels like it anyways. Seems like every week, somebody's backup is playing. I mean, a lot of people look at that when they look at our Vikings. They have talked about how the Vikings have faced so many backup quarterbacks this year. Well, a part of it's just that's how the league is. That's the way things are going right now. I mean, Cooper Rush had to come in for quite a bit of time this year. Just guys like that, they've had to step up in different ways, and um, I think it's showing a little bit more about how important having a good backup quarterback can be that can at least like not crash the car when you hand them the keys.
right.
Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I actually want to give some flowers to Gardner Minshew here. I think he did about as good of a job as he can possibly do. Philadelphia put up 34. Yeah, some of it was defense, but um, I don't think he really train wrecked the game. Sure, he turned over the ball a couple times, but he did basically what he could to put some points up on the board.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry. I just want to add something. Um, it kind of adds another point to why I think the 49ers are the number one team in the league. I mean, if you can keep winning with Brock Purdy, who was originally your third string quarterback, I mean, and making him look good too, eliminating him from turning over the ball and just not making mistakes. I mean, you deserve all the credit in the world, especially if you're blowing out teams with your third string quarterback.
Right.
so back to the point, do you think running quarterbacks are sustainable, and what type of quarterback would you want for a franchise?
So me personally here, um, I kind of like the Patrick Mahomes style of quarterback where it's like they're not they don't really incorporate like they don't have designed run plays for them. Sure, you can scramble when you get outside the pocket, but Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, I think, both fit into that bin, or at least the vintage Aaron Rodgers did from like 10 years ago. Maybe a little bit of Dak Prescott too, but otherwise, I can't really see like a lot of these guys like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, a lot of them lasting more than, I don't know, maybe a couple of years past their rookie contract versus, Patrick Mahomes is probably going to play in this league for 20 years, barring an injury. But a lot of those other guys, I feel like they just have shortened careers because, I mean, if you look at like even RG3, he didn't have that long of a career. Colin Kaepernick didn't have that long of a career. Now, Russell Wilson has made it work. I guess he fits more into like the Mahomes and Rodgers bin of, I don't think Seattle necessarily had a ton of designed run plays for him. And well, Denver definitely doesn't because he definitely doesn't have the legs that he used to. But that's kind of the quarterback that I like.
I feel like we're gonna see a lot more of those Mahomes style quarterbacks coming into the league. I
Mhm.
know Caleb Williams was uh, now the Heisman Trophy winner. I know he's looked at to be the next Patrick Mahomes as quarterback coming into the league, but I feel like we could see a lot of them like Bryce Young or even Will Levis, you know. I know Connor, that's your guy, but
Mhm.
he can move too.
Right.
So, me personally, I would want a guy like Lamar Jackson or Tua. I think they're very stable. I think if Tua can keep the concussions under control, then I think he'll have a great career in this league. And it's fun to watch a running quarterback too, from a casual
Hmm.
standpoint, and it extends the play even longer. I know you were saying Mahomes, and I mean, who wouldn't want a guy like Mahomes? But I wanted to say him, but I didn't want to be like too obvious with it. But yeah,
I like for me, I would take. I think Jalen Hurts is my is literally like
fair.
my definition of who I'd want on my team. I think he's got everything. He's got the upper strong quarterback, upper body strength. He's got the legs and mobility to run. He's got it all. Um, I know he's smart with the running. He doesn't. I don't think he's like, oh, I see a wide open lane. I'm just gonna take off and run. I know. I actually think he goes through his reads, and if he doesn't see anything, then he runs like a good quarterback should. The thing with Lamar is, yeah, you see he like before college, you see his high school tapes where he was pointing at the defender, then he does his backstep juke and then walks into the end zone like it was nothing. But I mean, even in college, like I feel like he wouldn't even like go through his progressions and he'd just take off right away once he sees the lane, like, oh, I can beat everyone on this defense, so I'm just gonna use my legs. Like, yeah, he's proven to do that in the NFL too, but I mean, he's got help with his offense because it's literally designed for him to run.
Yeah, I mean it's designed for him to run, but Greg Roman not a very good OC, and outside of Mark Andrews, who does he really have to throw to?
Nobody, nobody. But he has the utility package with the offensive line and Patrick Ricard at the H position
Yeah.
to block for him. So his offensive line grid is pretty good for them to run the ball. But they just need to add a couple good receivers. But it's hard because like why would you want to go to a place who doesn't like throw the ball much at all? And where your quarterback you probably don't have a lot of confidence in him throwing the ball.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird how they've, I guess, in terms of like actually passing the ball, they've taken the ball out of Lamar's hands this year. It almost seems like no, there's, a part of it is okay, he's just running the ball more and scrambling. But to your point about Greg Roman, the Ravens don't really have a good history of offensive coordinators. I mean, you have to go back to Jim Caldwell to really find a good one. But I mean, even the year that they won the Super Bowl, so Jim Caldwell took over late in the season because they fired their offensive coordinator that year. It just seems like they don't ever really have like a solid guy there. And with Jim or John Harbaugh, rather, he's obviously the head coach of the team and he's the special teams guy. But when you have somebody like that, that's not necessarily like specializing in one side of the ball or the other, it's almost like you need to find a guy that can head coach the offense and head coach the defense. So I feel like that's a harder thing to find. And I think they just need to work on finding somebody else, like somebody a little bit younger instead of somebody that's been around the block. So I think, yeah, if they had somebody that actually knew what they were doing, they'd be able to have a better chance to pass the ball.
I personally think because Lamar doesn't agree with the contract with the Ravens, right?
Right.
And we've had talks personally that we believe Lamar may not be a Raven the next year, correct?
Yeah, it sounds like that's becoming more likely.
So what my thought is, I think the Atlanta move, I feel like Atlanta would be a good spot for him. And I know they use the tight end a lot, and Kyle Pitts is basically a big receiver playing tight end and fits the kind of Megatron frame. So I feel like that would be a good spot for him and would turn Kyle Pitts into a very, very big fantasy, target.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I just don't think Arthur Smith is quite the guy to either want that or be able to handle it.
Hmm.
But I mean, if you take away Arthur Smith, I think that's a great fit.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was Brandon Staley or Arthur Smith, but didn't we have talks about, or we were talking in the past about one of them leaving
I think there's
this
a good
this
possibility
offseason?
that both of them could leave,
Yeah,
depending on. I mean, next year for sure, Arthur Smith is going to go into the season on the hot seat
yeah.
because he's had 2 seasons now of not making the playoffs.
Well,
Assuming the Falcons don't win that terrible South Division, but I don't think that's going to happen.
it's just they're really bad at building a team. I feel like down there in Atlanta, they don't know what to do with the pieces they have. I
It
mean,
is
injuries haven't helped either.
it is kind of interesting to me that at one point they had, I believe they got themselves to the first place at one point this year. They played around 500 for a while, and then the shine kind of wore off, and they came back down to earth. And Mariota wasn't really that good. I mean, he looked good in the beginning, but
Hmm.
he's not that great.
Right.
So I don't know. I think I mean, obviously they overachieved, but if you look at their roster, especially their defense, it's so depleted. They need to draft good football players, I guess. I mean, going into the draft this year, I don't think you can look at, well, they need this position or they need that position. It's almost kind of similar to like the boat that the Texans are in. I mean, just draft good players and don't really worry about the position because they need a lot.
Correct.
Now, a guy like Justin Fields, I don't think personally he's gonna have a long career.
Yeah,
And here's why.
go ahead.
He's a vegan.
Is he really?
No,
Yeah.
you can't. All right, I feel like we can all agree I mean, he's not the biggest quarterback. I mean, he definitely looks built, but
He's got some pretty big biceps. I mean,
yeah,
at some point, it's just got to come crashing down. Those plants can't save you that much,
he's
man.
got no help. I mean, David Montgomery and Darnell Mooney out. I don't remember.
Darnell
was
Mooney, Chase Claypool.
Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
I mean, but those aren't very like.
Cole Kmet's
Uh,
probably like top 15 tight end, but
but what's that saying?
nothing.
Your tight end's your only target. I mean, that's the same story as the Ravens and Andrew. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just. Oh gosh.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what the goal is in Chicago.
the way he grades out as a passer too is pretty bad. I mean, he grades really well in the run game. I mean, he's very close to breaking Lamar Jackson's record, I believe, still, or at least he was on pace a few weeks ago to do that. But yeah, he's not really the kind of guy that you go, okay, well, we can for sure count on him passing the ball if they shut down the run too, because if you take that away from him, I think that can be said about a lot of these guys. Like if you take away the way that Lamar Jackson runs the ball, I think he's a significantly worse passer. Now, a lot of people can, shout at me and say, hey, that's just a part of his game. You can't just say, well, if you take that away, then he's not that good. But I think there's something to be said about that because if you look at a lot of these guys, eventually everybody gets old. Like I was just talking about Russell Wilson, he doesn't run the ball anymore. Okay, so when you can't run the ball anymore like you used to, what do you have left to offer?
Mm-hmm.
And that's more of what I'm looking at with a lot of these guys because essentially you're running the ball like a running back. Okay, so once that part isn't sustainable beyond probably 8 to 10 years. So I just like to see what these guys would look like if they, were relied on to throw the ball a little bit more than they're running it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's it for now. You can like, subscribe, comment, share, all that fun stuff. And we will see you next episode.